My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with a profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins, and grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Viktor Emil Frankl was born in 1905 in Vienna, Austria, to a Jewish family. As a teenager, he showed a great interest in psychology and entered University of Vienna Medical School. During his medical studies, he took a particular interest in studying depression and suicide, and he set up youth counseling centers in Vienna in a successful effort to decrease teenage suicide in the city. When Austria was annexed by Nazi Germany in 1938, he had an opportunity to flee the country. However, he decided to stay with his family. Well, he was rounded up and sent to the concentration camp in 1942 along with his parents. His wife was pregnant and his sister. One by one, his family members, who were physically separate from him, perished during their incarceration. He was the only member of his family to survive. During his terrible ordeal, he observed that despite the brutality and degradation around him, he noticed how those inmates who had some meaning in their lives were more likely to survive. He himself tried to find the meaning not only of the grotesque injustice of the racial extermination, but also the death of his immediate family members. What almost broke him down completely was when he found out that his pregnant wife was killed in the gas chamber. Nevertheless, Frankl persevered, and eventually he found a profound meaning as to why his life was spared. Based on his experience in the concentration camps, he believed that humans are motivated by something called a will to meaning, which equates to a desire to find meaning in life. He argued that life can have meaning even in the most miserable of circumstances, and that the motivation for living comes from finding that meaning. He became the founder of what is known as logotherapy. One of his favorite sayings was, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how." Jesus, with his background story about finding the deepest meaning of our life, we want to continue our dialogue with you today on this second Sunday of Lent, which describes the scene of your transfiguration on Mount Tabor. The Gospel tells us that you brought with you 3 of the apostles, Peter, James, and John. Suddenly, you transfigured in their presence, and your clothes became dazzlingly white, such as no fuller on earth could bleach them. Then Elijah appeared along with Moses, and they conversed with you. As can be imagined, the 3 apostles did not know what to do in the face of such a fantastic supernatural phenomenon, except that Peter began to mumble, saying, "Rabbi, it's good that you are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah." Then a cloud covered over them, and they heard a voice which said, "This is my beloved Son, listen to him." Suddenly, looking around, they no longer saw anyone, but Jesus alone with them. As you were coming down from the mountain, you, Jesus, charged them not to talk with anyone about what they had seen, except when the Son of Man had risen from the dead. Well, Jesus, they had no clue as to what you're telling them. Silent in their mind and heart, they're still beside themselves with what they had witnessed on that high mountain. They saw you, Jesus, as their leader, as their teacher, as their guide, a man like themselves, suddenly become so bright and transfigured they had become very frightened. They would have said interiorly, "This is not an ordinary man. This man is God." After all, did they not hear the voice from heaven telling them that they should listen to him because he is the Son of God? Well, if Jesus really the Son of God, then they wondered, why did he tell them to keep everything under wrap? Keep it as a secret, except when the Son of Man had risen from the dead. What is the meaning of your saying, Jesus? What is the meaning of it all? God does not die. You, Jesus, was transfigured moments ago in our presence to show us that you have divinity. So, Jesus, what do you mean by telling us that you will die? And what is this about resurrection? Dead people do not rise from their graves and live again. No such a thing can happen. It's totally unheard of. This is impossible. Jesus, at that time, it is true that these men had no clue as to the future events of his suffering, passion, and death. They'll begin to understand the meaning of what they'd witnessed on Mount Tabor only after your resurrection. They'll eventually understand the real meaning of your salvific death on the cross, that it was for the redemption of mankind. For this reason, Jesus, we now ask your help to understand the meaning behind the Lenten penances we began to practice on Ash Wednesday. Why does the Church encourage us to be penitential during this holy season of Lent? Pope Francis told us in his letter that, quote, Jesus revealed to his disciples the deepest meaning of his mission when he told them of his passion, death, and resurrection in fulfillment of the Father's will. He then called the disciples to share in this mission for the salvation of the world. End of quote. That is why. That is the fundamental meaning of our Lenten penances, not only for our deeper conversion, but also in order to share in Jesus' mission for the salvation of souls. Just think, my friends, the practice of not eating snacks between meals, if that is what you have voluntarily chosen to offer to Jesus as one of your several Lenten penitential practices, has a deep meaning. You can offer it up not only to be detached from food, but more importantly, as a sacrifice for the conversion of someone you know, a friend, a family member, a relative, perhaps. When you put this supernatural meaning to this small sacrifice, it acquires greatness in the eyes of God. That is the motivation for all of us to be generous and persevering in our penances. Yes, as Frankl said, those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. Paraphrasing it, we can say, since I know the deepest supernatural meaning of what I do, I'll persevere with it till the very end of this Lenten season. Just before Ash Wednesday, I happened to go through some of my saved files on my laptop, and I found one which caught my attention. The title of the file is What to Do for Lent, 100 Things. Well, I went through the list, which has 3 sections. Fasting, with the 2 subheadings, from bad things and from good things. Then prayer. The third one, almsgiving. At the end of the list, there was an instruction. It said, quote, after brainstorming, discussing, and praying, pick one thing from each box for your family or community to do together in this Lent. End of quote. I think that is a marvelous suggestion, something very concrete. Press 1 or 2 or 3 from each of the sections, fasting, prayer, and almsgiving. Perhaps, as the list suggested on the section on fasting from bad things, gossip, calling names, being picky, arguing, etc. And on fasting from good things, junk food, television, sweets, soda, hot showers, hitting the snooze button, etc. And on the section on prayer, getting up early to pray, reading a chapter of the Bible a day, picking a virtue to strive every day, praying the chaplet of the Divine Mercy, and so on. And on the section on almsgiving, performing an act of kindness every day, giving someone a compliment every day, spending some time you'd have spent watching TV with your family, and so on. Jesus, these are really small things compared to the suffering, passion, and death you voluntarily undertook on behalf of us sinners. Yes, Jesus, as the three apostles eventually understood the meaning of their martyrdom, in order to prove their love for you, I too know the meaning of these small Lenten penances. That is why, with the help of my mother, I will have the courage to persevere in performing them till the very end of Lent, to prove my love for you, Jesus. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, inspirations that you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask your help to put them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.